I'm very, in many ways I'm in awe of her because she's an extraordinary person. And I honor that space. Often when I come to see her at Creative Growth, you know, she'll be very glad to see me for 5 minutes, and then she'll go. No, she won't stop. Sometimes I have to pick her up for a doctor's appointment or something. It's terrible. You know, getting her to leave her work is very difficult. So I really honor who she is in all of that. And I don't understand where that comes from very much more than anyone else. I'm just in awe of it, you know, just amazing.
Everybody buckled up?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Millimètres, centimètres, décimètres, décamètres, hectomètres, kilomètres, diamètres, potimètres, kilomètres, des millions, des trillions et des tracines. De la vinette coule dans un réservoir.
Nope.
Does he do a lot of trees?
Well, I think
Hi, it's me. Do you have a few minutes to meet this morning? Jack Fisher is coming in at 10. Remember, he's this gallery owner from San Francisco, and we're going to talk about picking some work. Do you care if I watch Judith Scott, I show him and that kind of thing, or? Okay.
Hello.
You're not taking this one.
Yeah, that would be really great
I
for a
know.
San Francisco show.
Masterpiece, I guess. It's possible, but I don't really care
Earlier,
for it.
yeah. How might work? Yeah, this is a nice piece. It's new and it has a good story that goes with it. And
Creative Growth Art Center is an art center. We are not a therapy or rehabilitation center. The model for our studio is that we have artists from the community who are all working artists come here as staff people and form a partnership with our artists with disabilities. So it's a true artistic model. We do not have our therapists who work here and do not see ourselves as therapists, although there's a very important therapeutic benefit that comes when people get to make art and express themselves artistically. And when our artists come into the door, they have access to this amazing kind of privilege, which is they get to be artists all day long. And I like the fact that this is a sort of rarefied place where they are the leaders and they are the people that are telling us and showing us the way through their art.
buenos días.
I got a jacket almost like yours, nurse.
Judith Scott's worked here for, I think, 20 years now, 15 years, certainly a lot longer than I have. Her story is interesting. She was born in Ohio, a twin, fraternal twin, 2 girls, Joyce and Judy. One has Down syndrome, is deaf, one is what we'd say is called normal. And they spend, unusually for that time, Judy's almost 60 years old, they spend the first 6 or 7 years of their life together.
When Judy and I were born, they didn't know that we were going to be twins, so that was the first surprise. And the story is that the doctor was reaching for the placenta, and he said, oops, here comes another one. And there's some mix-up in the birth certificates where the baby that weighs less is named Judy, but in fact, I was the baby that weighed less. And so it's one of the confusions I've always had about our twinness is I used to think when I was a little girl that if you changed our names around, you would change who we were, and that I wasn't necessarily Joyce at all. Possibly I was Judy. And that was a continuing thing in my life.
In American society, in the 40s and 50s and before, it was considered normal if you had a child that was mentally retarded or had Down syndrome or other kind of disabilities to put the child in an institution. Her family seemed to resist that for the first number of years, I don't know why, and then one day they decided it was time, and Judy was taken from the home at night and put into a state institution.
I just woke up one morning and she just wasn't there. And I remember just this cold space in the bed, and found my mother in the kitchen, and she had a nervous breakdown shortly after that. And at the time, I remember her teeth chattering, going. I still didn't really understand that they meant that she wouldn't be back, you know. I just didn't really get that for quite some time. I think maybe when Judy was sent to the institution, there was a lot of pain in our family and a lot of loss that was never dealt with. You know, it was just like the doors were shut, and, you know, everyone stopped talking about her. It was as if she stopped existing.
Was misdiagnosed in the institution. She's deaf. There was no mention of that in her record until 20 or 30 years after she arrives. So she does not learn sign language.
She's reluctant to talk and is not too cooperative, which, no kidding, she doesn't talk, you know. But they were seeing it as a kind of resistance, right? She can be very stubborn and at times refuses to do her work. When they were testing her You know, they were saying things like point to the red circle, which, of course, if you're deaf,
So essentially, she's cut off from the world. She doesn't have hearing. She doesn't have speech. She doesn't have sign language. And she's been isolated.
Judith.
We move forward 30 or 40 years, and Joyce, who is living in California, and I think courageously decides that, well, you know, the decisions we made as a family then, or were made for us as a family, are not the decisions that I would make today. So I'm going to change that. So she goes back to Ohio and gets custodial rights to her sister.
because I didn't feel any sense of control in relation to the decisions about our lives when she was institutionalized and when these things happened, that feeling stayed with me somehow. I just always thought she had to live in this institution. It was like my mind, it didn't move in any other direction about it. And then I went to this 6-day meditation, silent meditation retreat with, every day became more and more internally intense. And every day all the busyness in my life kept falling away, and these distractions, tremendous number of distractions. And then one day, I think it was about 4 days in, there was this very quiet place. And it was like in the heart of myself. There I was with Judy, and there we were together. And it was the clearest moment I've ever had, I think, in my heart or in my thinking or in anything, where I said, why should we be apart? There's no reason. There's no reason.
Oh, you gonna take that? You gonna take that?
Oh, well, she can take it.
Bye-bye. Bye. Did you say bye, Judy? Bye.
She likes to make it her own mind.
See you guys later.
Hi. Judy's waiting. Judy!
Please come through.
Here, you can put it here.
The institution, in their final way of, I think, sort of mistreating Judy, puts her on a plane after having been in this institution for 4 years by herself and sends her terrified to California, where she's met by Joyce here.
When Judy was coming to California, the plan through the institution was that there would be an attendant who would come with her. And it was extremely upsetting to have her arrive. When she came off the plane, she had black circles under her eyes, and she looked absolutely terrified. And she fell into my arms sobbing. And, she had because she doesn't have language, there was no way for anyone to explain to her what what she would be doing or where she would be going.
That's her favorite spot.
All right. We adjusted, and we celebrated being together almost from the first moment. I mean, she came, we had a very small flat, and one of the rooms was made so it was her room, and then,
That would be so great.
you know, she had her own little drawers, and she very quickly set about, you know, organizing it. She's extremely organized, organizing everything and putting her things where she wanted them to be. And she loved helping make dinner and helping clean up and just being part of a family. So it was absolutely wonderful. And Alana was only, I think, 10 years old.
My first memory of her was when I went to meet her, she was living still in the institution in Ohio. I must have been like 8 or something like that. We drove all the way out there, and it was this huge old institution. Uh-oh. You are so funny. You're doing a good job, though. It was this massive institution with all these people with disabilities. I hadn't been around people with disabilities very much at that point, so I felt sort of uncomfortable. And I met Judy, and I had never met anyone with Down syndrome, and I remember that she recognized my mom, like, immediately, and she started crying, and my mom started crying, and I could see how close their connection was, but I didn't really understand it very well at that point. And what I remember is we left, and I said to my mom, I was like, well, Mom, because I knew they were twins. I was like, Mom, she looks a lot like you. And of course she looks like, nothing like my mom.
Anything she does, you don't think she looks something.
Oh, really? Well, I don't think they look too much alike. I think it was just like, I wanted to say something sort of soothing because my mom was so upset and everything.
That's working incredibly well. That's same toast, right?
Is that the one that just went in?
So the transition, went really easily and happily. And the hard part then came when I was still working, and it was difficult. Judy was, I can't remember at what point she started creative growth, but there was a period when she was just at home. I couldn't really work out my schedule to always be there when she was there. And, it just wasn't possible for the very long term. So I had to look for a board and care home where she would live. And I found someplace quite near us. And I could see her every day, but it was terrible for her. The moving her into this other house, I can remember she was just kind of clawing at my clothing and sobbing and, literally in every way begging me not to, it's hard to talk about, not to have her go away again,
Joyce, the sister who is a writer, feels that, I'm creative. She's my twin. She could be creative too. Hears about creative growth and brings her here. As I understand it, for at least the first 2 years or so, really did not engage in art making.
What Judy would do is she would take a sheet of paper and she would scribble circular kinds of scribbles all the way across the paper, filling it on one side and then flipping it over and doing the same thing on the other side, completely filling the paper. Then she would lay it on the floor, pick up another sheet of paper and do the same thing. After she did maybe 3 or 4 of these kinds of scribbled drawings, she'd lose interest.
We wanted her to be this, talented artist, because I think my mom even told me that people with Down syndrome tend to be quite creative, or they have better access to that side of themselves or something. So we would, sit her down with paper and pens, and she would make these just sort of like loop-de-loop drawings, and that was all she would do. And we were like trying to see the genius in it, and like, this isn't going so well and everything.
And she'd often would bring out a pack of cards. She'd deal herself a hand of solitaire, and she would play cards for a while.
I think essentially was trying to understand the environment around her, understand who she was and where she was.
Well, Sylvia 70 came as a California Arts Council artist in residence, and she brought mixed media textile materials with her.
I had kind of cordoned off an area where my supplies were, and I had a table of my own, and my students were gathered around, and she would watch us. And I would sometimes, wink at her or smile at her, or go over and see what she was doing.
Judy liked Sylvia, and Sylvia liked Judy, and they became friends, sort of like sisters here in the studio.
And one day, I believe in this idea of prepared spontaneity. It seems like a spontaneous act, but you realize she's been preparing for it for a long time. She picks up some wood and some yarn, and she wraps an object, and she creates essentially her first sculpture.
And so she began to look in her box of tricks, and she brought out something that I think I had found at the ocean, was like a piece of cork with some wire on it and some stuff, and she put that in there, and then she wrapped some yarn around that and the paper, and she was having a wonderful time, and we had all this paint, and she was painting, and then she got some sticks, some willows. She was just wrapping, and she was just having a wonderful time. That was really in the beginning for her. And this piece has been all over the world. And that was maybe the moment when she realized that she made something and it was done. It was finished.
Essentially, she hasn't stopped doing that since. So she gathers objects, yarn, wood, boxes, foils, briefcases, videotapes, paper, and she wraps it.
Her pieces have become larger and larger as her confidence grows.
Compulsively, obsessively, nonstop, so to the point where her fingers blister every day from the minute she walks in until she leaves. And, it raises all kinds of questions. Is she making objects? Is she making art? Is she communicating? Or is she merely unraveling, all of her stories and everything that's been in her head for 40 years that she's been trying to talk about, but can't? This is probably the most expensive piece, and then this is probably the least expensive piece, so those will be similar. That's nice. But
yeah, it's very sexy.
About that. Yeah, it is. I know, it's weird because it's so brute and then feminine at the same time. The Art Brut Museum in Lausanne, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Dublin, the American Museum of Folk Art, all felt that this work was important, that they would be interested in receiving it in their collection. That sort of set the stage for the essentially second wave of exhibitions and the commercial sort of success of her work, which followed that.
What's on your head? What's on your head? Nice stuff.
Which space will it be in again?
It's going to be at, trying to think of it, it's 1345 Grand Street, which is Upper Grand. I'll give you one of the old cards. What's that?
The top on that piece is kind of the fragile.
Fragile.
That's fine like that, but
Okay, yeah.
just so you know.
Qué belleza. Esta obra, para mí, es maravilloso, es maravilloso. Es como un nido de pájaro invertido. Por alguna razón me hace sentir de un nido, ¿no? Tejido por un increíble pájaro, pero en vez de contener, lo tira todo afuera.
For me, being here in the studio, I feel that it's very much an artistic laboratory, and that it's a way for me to see what makes human beings sort of different than other animals in the way that we need to work out our sort of emotions and our feelings and our intellectual ideas, using often art or other forms of communication, and working with a population that doesn't have a lot of opportunity to express themselves, to be creative. It's really very important what happens here. What is it like to be a person in this world? What is it like to be a person with disabilities, perhaps also? And how can art really convey that unique quality of human nature that I think we all feel?
Well, that's my artwork, and that's Mr. Green Nose.
Okay. That's
yeah. And the women in black, they work for me. And they're really cool because they like to wear black classic penny loafers with their black socks to match their outfit. Mr. Green Nose, he's my arch enemy.
Oh, well, no wonder.
And he hates everything having to do with chocolate and music. So every lady from Chocolate City wears black.
Uh-huh. It's a rule.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I said, anyone who doesn't like chocolate or music is not allowed in Chocolate City. And that's what Chocolate City 2004, which we transformed in Chocolate City 2005, with approved.
Makes sense.
So when it happens, I know that this excellent world of ours will be a wonderful place for me to live in.
I've been here before, about 10 years ago, and at the time I was aware of this amazing energy. And I think if you have 30, 40 people in the same room concentrating on something, you will have this kind of energy. You could find it in a classroom, and you could find it in a railway station. However, there's a special kind of process going on here, which you immediately feel as the exchange of images, the articulation, dreams. The movement of people is extraordinary.
Some paint that Luis is using might drip over on what Lorna's doing or on Donald. And in the same way that the paint might drip from one person to another, I think ideas kind of drip around too, and inspiration. So that's one of the things that makes the studio so creative, is such a mixture of individual kind of focus happening in the same kind of area.
I don't have a clue, really, some days when it's working so well, where it all comes from. And sometimes we're a little bit afraid to try new things or to change things because I don't think anyone really understands what it means to be creative, where that comes from, what the motivation is. And
you must have wild dreams.
I do.
Yeah. Your stuff looks like a wild dream. Oh, God.
Carl, Jake.
Gorbachev, Russian president. Remember
Russian?
Right,
That's a Russian name.
Remember? He talked real fast. I remember he let it go real fast. Remember every time I watch the news, his words were so quick. Yeah, I watched the words. Russian, Gorbachev, remember Gorbachev, he tried war and President Clinton made peace with him. I remember.
Yeah, Russian.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about outsider art, we're gesturing towards the idea of a process of expressive art making, of expressive mark making, which doesn't involve following an academic principle, doesn't involve an ambition to become a famous artist, doesn't involve a desire to make money or to please anybody, but is an autonomous process in which the individual is pursuing their own idea, or their own desire to whatever end that is, perhaps to consolidate their idea of themselves, or perhaps to escape from the world that they're in, which isn't a very happy one, perhaps to exercise certain power in an area this big, whereas in the wider world they have no power. So it can be a form of escape. But very often it's a form of self-expression which hits you as a viewer with this intense concentration that is usually found in this sort of work, and which is, I think, the expression of something very, very urgent and essential to the life of that person. So that's why we respond to outsider art, because we're watching human beings struggling to find themselves and to find their voice. And that's, I think, something very moving.
And I want to show you, I don't have like a final sort of pick of everything. I want to show you the work I was thinking of from a person. And if you feel like that's a direction you want to move in, then we'll either do some yes/no picks together, or then I'll sort of go through it and do it one more time.
Okay.
This is Carl Hendrickson. Carl's in the, I'll show you his picture. Carl is in, has severe cerebral palsy, but he builds these chairs for himself in this house. And he works very slow. There's only, in 12 or 14 years, he's made 2 chairs, and he's working on this. So I would love to put maybe one of the chairs or 2 of the chairs in a show. So. This is the chair I'm thinking of, and this is Carl, and this is the one he eats from in the kitchen that he built.
Are you finished?
For me, they have a really beautiful sort of quality, not about the materials and about the process and about the sense of sort of the home for the artist. I mean, he's building this house here, but he builds these kind of self-contained units that I find to be really interesting. So that's something I would consider putting in.
So his interest is just building more furniture for himself? Is that?
Yeah, he doesn't speak, so we don't know, but he started to build these to function. He wanted a place to eat lunch. When he was younger, this one, he put yes and no on it so he could point to answers to questions. So they started to be practical in a way.
Yes, okay. You ready for your soda?
Well, this is exciting.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
So you said
kind
up
of
to...
like a throne, actually.
Yeah.
All right, Carl. You did a good job.
Carl's body is basically his measuring device. So he uses the length of his arm, the length of his leg, the length of his torso to determine his dimensions. So he has a very clear kind of engineering, construction kind of mind inside a body that has a lot of physical limitations. And what Carl and I have developed over the years is some sort of communication system that's just totally individual, that indicates what he wants done, what he wants me to do for him, and how we work together. And I'm always amazed. I've known Carl for 20 years. I'm always amazed at the clear conception he has in his mind and how well he can communicate without words and without using sign language, but just through gesture, pointing, and his enthusiasm. This isn't going to fall off now, is it? Okay. Go ahead and glue that one up.
Well, it's true that outsider art does offer a space within which to understand certain things. Those things have to do with a shared problem of life. And in a sense, there is this perspective offered by this kind of art making. It leads, I think, above all towards the individual, so that one understands more clearly the dilemma of being a person and the very great difficulty of finding oneself as a person within a world which overwhelms you with alternatives and challenges and often ignores you when you think you've found yourself. So there's a loneliness about much outsider art, and it's a loneliness, I think, that many people share. In fact, it may be indeed intrinsic to being human, that you are a single person. To find a social dimension here is the next step.
We're going to need a later flight. A much later flight.
Change of plans? 24/7 customer service. Book with Travelocity, and you'll never roam alone.
Ignoring you. Ignoring you.
My name is
Look at that.
115 pounds.
Can't you take it?
I was 25 years old. I was 310 pounds.
Put me your will.
I had 44-inch
Put
waist.
me your will.
Looking back, how big
Put me
I
your
was,
will.
and it's hard to believe that.
You're gonna need to
That's up to you. Say hello.
Thank you, John.
Many of the children still there. What we do that, Joe?
So this is the Creative Growth Gallery, and right now we have an exhibition of Donald Mitchell's work here. And Donald's one of our sort of most known artists. He's worked here for almost 20 years, if not longer.
Just from to east, there's such ways to end.
This opening piece here for the exhibition shows this figure, and Donald, this is if he has a characteristic figure, this is it. When we ask Donald, who is this person, he tends to say it's me. And he tends to say it's me right here on the page.
Donald likes music, right? Yeah.
Do you compose your own music?
I write it sometimes.
What are they about?
About moving the bass, sometimes they walking rock by the river, and it's all the lakes. All this go around circle of the river. And all the water is floating in the water. All the rivers can suck and go out there. And some out to parties, have a friend, walking to the back door. Was a real one.
The early things that Donald did were ink on paper and colored pencil on paper, and he built kind of like meshes of cross-hatching and delicate marks that built sort of abstract thickets. I like to think of like rabbit brush or something like that, where something might disappear in there and you'd never see it again, or something might appear out of it, look around, and then disappear again. And what happened is, one time, out of that rabbit brush, out of that thicket, there was a figure that appeared. And when that figure appeared, Donald seemed to take the next step forward as an artist. And that step, we can't really mark exactly the date and time that that happened. But from then on, the thickets disappeared, and we got the figure that started to line up.
Why do you draw so many people?
I'm trying to get lost. Because when I said I was feeling such from to ease, there's such ways to end. Wrong to ease, and we'll go to the rest. Arrows to end.
And it's been said that outsider art at its most extreme would not be in dialogue at all with the outside world, because the urgent business has to do with self-assertion. But when one looks at such work, one becomes aware that that is actually what we're all dealing with and what is important to us. And so beginnings of a dialogue emerge. And although the outsider work appears to be superficially self-enclosed and not talking to anybody, autistic, it does, I think, and perhaps necessarily, contain the beginnings of communication. And indeed, every expression, in effect, presupposes somebody listening, somebody that will interpret and respond. And so in the end, I think outsider art asks us to respond. And to do so, we need to ourselves go through a similar engagement with these deep problems, these deep difficulties.
Okay. So what's going on in our world? What's happening? What's happening in our world? What's going on at the White House? Big shakeup. What's happening there? A lot of people resign, quit, whatever you want to call it. Retired. That's another one.
Yeah. Are these committed? Are these New York pieces or not?
The one, the white and black piece here is committed to painting. All the pen work is open for...
This one?
Who's going to be our next Secretary of State? She's a woman. Rice. What's Rice's name? What's her first name? We're going to be hearing a lot about her.
Barbara.
No.
Lisa.
Condoleezza.
Condoleezza Rice.
Rice. That's right.
I think this is the masterpiece here. The one I'm about to rip.
This is a whole new kind of approach, this whole vertical line process.
He's never really done this kind of layering with the thin line and the black line and the white and the thin line. I think it's really stunning.
Swoop.
Yeah.
I think that in Dan's work, this idea of repetition is very important, and I think it's very important for many artists. The idea of doing something again and again comes up, and it's kind of compulsive, or it's meaningful, or it's a kind of a language.
I think it's a mystery. I don't know that it's really, we can never know for sure why Dan Miller repeats emotion with greater and greater urgency when he draws. My feeling is that perseverative or repeated actions like that we all know about from the time we're babies. That we all, repetitively suck our thumbs or suck at the breast or do certain kinds of gestures to soothe ourselves and to feel more contained and more comfortable in the world. And that I think Dan is doing that, but he's also, as an artist, his repetitions don't end up being just random scribblings. They have a certain kind of aesthetic cohesiveness and coherence, almost one could say a sophistication to them. So there's that interesting paradox that they have both this infantile, repetitive, self-soothing kind of visceral quality, as well as having a great deal of communicative and, I think, formal strength.
Might well get a tetanus shot.
I know, you get a tetanus shot if you step on a rusty nail, huh?
Leave it alone.
That's right.
Open a car door? No.
No.
Leave it alone.
That's right.
Leave it alone.
I will.
Right.
Right.
A cat like ball of string.
They do. They play with it.
Right. Cat like ball of string.
Do you have a cat?
Right. In the house.
What's the cat's name?
Mickey.
Mickey?
Right.
I think there is the danger of a sense of loss of his own body integrity. There's a sense of explosive kind of disintegration that could occur. And I know that he has, for example, a preoccupation with light bulbs. And as they heat up, he fears that they're going to explode. And he can become very agitated and very upset and need to be calmed if this were to happen.
He draws everything. So, you know, he'll do this kind of a thing.
And that's how you display, you just hang it?
That's how we did it. Just a little plexi, and we just...
It's easy to get it to stay on the wall, I'll be honest with you. But they're beautiful.
And we also wanted some light. You can see how they get really beautiful when you get some light.
That's gorgeous. Is that a pen?
It's like a chalky, this is like a Sharpie. It's an oil, yeah,
Metallic pen.
So we can, you know, and these can be pinned to a wall. These could have a little spacer bar. You know, I doubt that we're going to have a framing budget for serious frames on big pieces like that.
Bye, Adrian. Can you try to come early? Can you try to come a little earlier? But you did a good job. It's a good beginning. Thanks, Danny.
Oh, yes, you would. Want to keep? She don't like it when nobody takes her stuff. Sure, you see it. Hey, they just give me stuff. It's on them, bro. They always give me stuff.
What?
Do you have any of her work?
I do.
Do you know why? She has more than I do because she takes mine.
Well, what happens is that I am slightly more organized than my mother. I'm a slightly more organized individual, and Judy is also very organized. You are also very organized. It's our mother and my mother, Judy's twin, that somehow
say that I'm not organized?
somehow missed that gene.
I think I still don't know where she's going. I don't know whether she knows where she's going. There does seem to me an element of a quest here, and that she's bringing together flotsam and jetsam from around her to shape something, to make a structure. Certainly there's a shaping process, an expressive desire, and ultimately, I suppose, a need to have outside herself something which she's created, which she can recognize and be confident about. It's there, it's still there tomorrow, and so she's now got that stability in her life around these objects that she's fashioned. I imagine other things in her life are less certain, other things may change, and she may not be able to cope with the everyday of other people. But the art making, I think, is a continuum of certainty, and you can see the way she works. She knows what she's doing. She's not struggling.
that is, yeah, that a huge part of her healing in her life is her art and the creative process that she's engaged in with that. And there's many ways to look at it. There's the kind of hidden aspect of her work, and there's the layering and the protective quality of what she's doing. And often she seems to be creating figures like maybe another twin, maybe the two of us, maybe a baby that she loves but didn't have herself. But there's many, many ways of looking at it that seem to have some truth to them. And she certainly, there is a driven component, and I think it is part of her healing that she does that.
Judy's artistic process is quite clear, simple. She finds objects, she steals objects, she takes what she wants, and she starts a new piece. She takes yarn from the rug making area, she takes it from supplies that people donate to the studio, she grabs things that she should and grabs things that she shouldn't. And like most people who've lived in an institution, she's afraid they're going to be stolen. So she puts them in boxes and she hides them, and she keeps them in her space. Now, the way the piece gets actually crafted is often more subtle. The sort of parts get assembled. Often it starts with big objects, cardboard or rough objects that form a basic skeleton or a shape for the piece. And then she adds fiber or fabric, and it gets softer and it starts to take another form. And then she moves often into a phase where it gets more delicately woven. Gentle little strings, and she wraps it, and if you watch her, she'll wrap and she'll cut the end and she'll tuck the piece back in. She's economical and she uses every piece, you know. Then she might change to a large fiber rope or something which will add bulk again to the piece and come back to this delicate weaving of a web or a net, or almost like an embroidery of the thread around the piece, which gets quite beautiful.
I think that there is, in Judy's process, which again has this ingredient of repetition and of, in this case, moving thread through her hand and wrapping an object in repetitive movements, that there is an almost meditative quality to it. And that it is a calming kind of action, and that again there is the tactile sensation of the thread moving through her fingers, as well as the touching of this shape and this form as it grows and takes shape.
Judith Scott works over here. She's working on this little time machine piece. Hi, Judy. Are you getting sick of people today? Maybe.
I'm Renee. Nice to meet you. Great.
So, Judy's working on this little baby, which...
How long has she been working on it?
This piece is about 3 weeks old. You'll see when we go upstairs and look at her work, this white stuff has made it into her previous 2 sculptures, and now she's using the spools on this. So it's interesting because this is such a large piece that I'm wondering how she's going to... where did you get this? What's that? A wheel? A wheel? What do you... A wheel? What?
So she's the master. She's the leader.
She's the queen. She works always at this table, always by herself. She goes around and gathers what she wants, and she does it. And when she's done, she will hand it over to me.
I think she started wrapping the scarves around her head and wearing special hats and things when she started getting this sense of herself as an artist, or that somehow those two things came together. And it seemed that the more her art pieces grew and the more recognition she received, the more elaborate her headpiece. She sometimes would wrap, 3 scarves and then some kind of very fancy thing on top of that. So I sometimes think of it as an expression of her self-esteem and her sense of herself as an artist. I think it goes with that.
Oh, it is the only spider in the world that is known to live underwater. And what it does is to spin a dome of silk and then goes up to the surface, gets a bubble of air, brings it down, and bit by bit fills the dome with air. And then it lives inside that. And wherever it goes underwater, it has a layer of air bubbles over the surface. It has a very thick sort of a fur that is water resistant.
What's that? Why do you have tape on your neck?
It's on your neck.
Oh, she's got a Band-Aid.
You have to spotlight.
What happened?
Oh, no.
Can you give that to me? What about this? How's that coming? Okay?
When Judy finishes a piece, it's quite easy. It's finished, and she pushes it at you, and that's the end of it. And she doesn't want it back, and she'll go start a new one, and the baby's off into the world by itself. It's the way it happens.
You want this back? No? You want that? You want this? You want this? No? Okay. You want this one?
So Judy takes a lot of things that don't belong to her. So I guess according to the dictionary, she's a thief. I don't know where these things come from, and I don't know where they go, when she leaves. But it seems to be a cycle. They seem to come and they seem to go, and I think probably she's pretty even with her relationship with the world in terms of what she owes and what she is owed. So I think it works its way out.
Let me just interrupt for a second. I can't find the car keys, and I can't look for the lemons with all the car keys. And I think someone took the car keys.
Judy, do you have the car keys?
The blue, you didn't move the car keys?
So funny.
So no one knows about the car keys. Is that it? Car keys. You didn't take the car keys out of the trunk, right? Okay, no lemon then. What are you going to do without the lemon? No, we need a lemon.
What is inside Judy's sculpture? Well, there's all sorts of things.
We've often wanted to do an X-ray of her sculptures to see what is inside.
It used to be the cones that wool came on, the skeins that wool's wrapped around would be always a component. It used to be cut out pieces of pine, of wood.
How many X-rays do you want to take of this?
Fabric scraps or pieces of cardboard. But also, it's all kinds of things, like an electric fan that might be taken apart, maybe a bicycle wheel. It could be a chair. There was a children's chair here that she started wrapping. There was a grocery cart off the street missing 2 wheels that a homeless person had left out in front of Creative Growth that came in. That became a sculpture that was wrapped. And it could be the bags that potato chips come in that are mylar and shiny on one side. Once Judy became more famous after the book, donations of objects started appearing and materials. Someone that worked for a printing company donated, you know, like a piece of Mylar with Lay's potato chips on one side and silver on the other that would probably, you know, do like a Cristo wrap of this building. She incorporated that into sculpture. Christmas tree lights have appeared inside and around the sculptures. Women's shoes, men's shoes. She likes high heels. They've graced the top of some of her pieces. They've also disappeared totally. CDs, tape cassettes, LPs, the record covers that go around old LPs.
Looks like a little person, this one. Let's give it the treatment, just for fun.
Cardboard boxes, just random pieces of cardboard. Blankets. A blanket that may be folded will all of a sudden be patched on like a Band-Aid on the side of a piece and then get incorporated with yarn to go around it. Dish racks that you dry dishes in when you're washing dishes. And things that are interesting abstract shapes, when they don't have anything in them, will become part of an armature or maybe a crowning part of something. But it usually doesn't stay the crowning part, it gets wrapped over. Sometimes these pieces show their identity, these objects that are inside the sculptures, but generally there's just a glimpse of bits of them. One particular piece that I always liked was a sculpture that had a doorknob on it. And it's a small piece, it's about this big. And there must have been a donation of hardware. She found a brass doorknob. It was incorporated right in the center, like the navel of this piece. And it wasn't covered, but it was wrapped so it was stuck on there. It was like you could turn the doorknob. And it was like, if you could turn this the right way, you could open this world and find out what Judith Scott was all about. But you can't. And that's the enigma that makes her sculpture interesting.
But, you know, we carry off-site insurance, and I assume you do too, but either way, it would be insured, but that's not very important to me. It's more about the work.
We care about $1 million.
We should be fine. She sells for about $5,000 to $15,000, and the Dwight drawings sell and paintings sell for about $3,000 to $6,000. Right, so we thought we wanted to do a couple of signature pieces. Not like all, of course, but I mean, just like, you know, so I was thinking like, you know, if you wanted somebody like this or a couple of these around the people whose work we show. I'm sorry, I lost you. You lost.
No, that's cool.
Come on, Dan, you won. Hey, Dan, you got Traveler of the Week. Congratulations, you get this cup. You like it? Great. Okay, yay for Dan.
Okay, kids, you gonna pay for it. You gonna pay for it.
Zelma Riley. There you go, Zelma. Judith Scott. And Ernest Spears. anybody's shoes?
No, mine.
Judy's shoes?
I don't know.
So I don't know whose shoes they were, but I don't know if somebody went home barefoot that day, or once she is out the door, you can't really get Judy back in. So I wanted to find out whose shoes they were, but at that point it was a lost cause. She's a very determined collector.
I just keep coming back to this sense that it's really unpretentious and straightforward, and like there's a spiritual nature. There's a heart in it, and it's refreshing. Yeah.
I think it makes us think a little bit more about the motivation behind the art, knowing that these people aren't creating it for money. They're not doing it because they.
It's sometimes kind of surprising, as I consider myself an artist as well and put a whole lot of thought into it, and to see people who apparently are a little bit more basic in the way that they feel instead of being quite so intellectual, but putting me a bit to shame. It's kind of a little embarrassing. I should maybe make things a little more simple.
Young artist.
We didn't have birthdays. And I'm not sure why. I think for our mother, that Judy had Down syndrome was very difficult. I don't know. I think a birthday party for the two of us wasn't something that she was comfortable with. So we didn't have them.
This is happy.
I want to read to you, this is a prologue to this book that I'm working on, which is about Judy's and my life together. We were joined in the womb, in body and soul, and yet we were different. Even at birth, the unforeseen differences between Judy and me were received by others as part mystery, part gift, part curse. Were we originally destined to be identical twins? Are we actually the same person, each reaching toward the other across the unbridgeable chasm of an extra chromosome? Was there ever a separate Joyce or a separate Judy? Or is there only one being with two different forms, two different fates?
You're my love buggies. Yes, you are. You're the best. Can I hold your magazines? Let me hold them. Let me hold them. Okay, she's got them fixed. Did you fix them? Oh, thank you. Oh, look at that. That is love.
Generosity.
Love of the highest order, isn't it? This is love of the very highest order. Right here, between us, right? Am I right?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Judy. Happy birthday to you.
So, Judy died on that Monday night with her sister in Joyce's arms. They were at the cabin together, and they had gone to dinner, and they'd come back, and Judy was, I think, feeling a little upset, and they weren't sure if it was she had eaten too much or something, but she stopped breathing and died that, relatively peacefully and quickly, but suddenly with her sister. So it was really, they don't spend that many evenings together in the course of a year, so it was really almost remarkable timing that the twins, here they are born together, and then here they are, with Judy dying with Joyce. There they are, the twins again together. So it's a very sort of sad moment, but also a peaceful one and, the right one.